Hi, good afternoon. I'm Renee Wyckoff, Research Design Engineer at L&E Research. We're so glad you could join us today for the next webinar in a series of webinars hosted by L&E in 2018. Our webinar series focuses on the 6 steps to perfect qual, and today's webinar will focus specifically on step 6, maintaining client relationships. Our webinar series ties in with our white paper series as well, so we'll be sending out a copy of the white paper in addition to the recording of this webinar, should you be interested in revisiting or sharing with your colleagues that couldn't attend. Before we get started, I'd like to mention that we'll be taking questions and answering them at the end of this discussion. So let's get things kicked off and start with meeting our 3 guest speakers. Today we have Megan Ners, co-founder of L&E Research, Sherry Banky, Consumer Insights Manager at Kimberly-Clark, and Meryl Row, President and CEO of Mark Research. Megan, let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, great. I'm delighted to be here, and thanks so much for asking us to be a part of this panel. I've been in the research business now for about 35 years, and have started L&E Research quite a number of years ago. We're a small qualitative house, and with 5 moderators and researchers. My background is in psychology and applied communications research, and I'm really delighted to be a part of this panel because we have a lot of long-standing relationships with clients, so I felt like this was right up our alley.
Excellent. Thanks, Megan. Sherry, how about you?
Thanks. I'm Sherry Banky, and I am a Consumer Insights Manager with Kimberly-Clark Corporation. I've been in a variety of roles with Kimberly-Clark, including R&E, some business process work, project management, and currently I'm working in consumer insights. So I have had many interactions with business clients and vendors worldwide. So I'm very happy to be part of today's panel.
Thanks, Sherry. Meryl, how about you?
Thanks, Renee. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel today, and a big shout out to you and Brett and my L&E Research team for putting on these webinars. My name is Meryl Row. I'm been in the research industry for about 37, 38 years. I'm president and CEO of Mark Research, which is one of the older market research companies in the country. We've been around since 1965. I'm a big proponent of partnerships and of relationships, and truly love the industry that we're all in, and just addict being here. I've been on a number of the Insights Association boards and frequently a presenter at a number of conferences in the country. So thanks again for asking me to be part of the panel.
Thank you, Meryl. So without further ado, we're just gonna jump right in. I always like to come out of the gate with information that is really impactful for the people who are listening. Megan and Meryl, with your perspective being consultative, what are some of the things that you try to do to make it easy for your clients to work with you? Megan, let's start with you.
Well, I think I think the easiest thing to do to make anyone who you work for, to make it easy on them and to make them want to come back is to do exceptional work and to exceed their expectations in terms of the research, from everything from designing the research and thinking about innovative methodologies and ways to really get at their get the insights for their questions, and to along that path to do everything you can to really exceed their expectations and do the highest quality work that you can. There's no substitute for great work.
Thank you, Megan. Meryl, let's hear from you on that.
Yeah, I think being in the industry as long as I have, 35, 37 years or so, back in the day, and especially in the late 80s and 90s, it was a seller's market. So you didn't have to be great. You didn't have to do an amazing job on every project. Now life has changed. It's a buyer's market. Our clients really have the upper hand, and they need to work with people who deliver. They need to work with people who are easy to work with, right? So easy to work with to me is kind of table stakes. I think one of the things that we do and try to do really well is understand why our clients come to us and award us projects. So we all know that everybody says, all CEOs ask, okay, why didn't we win this project? We were a finalist, 3 other companies, we were the bridesmaids, we didn't win. What we try to do and teach our team is, why do we win? Why did you hand us this project? Was it based on our experience? Was it based on our experience with a vertical, a certain methodology? Did you like the team that we put together? So we really listen carefully to all those answers to that important question and use that as a springboard to really enhance the relationship and basically start off on the right foot.
Thanks, Meryl. And Sherry, being on the client side of this, what are your partners doing now that makes it easy for Kimberly-Clark to work with them?
So Renee, I think the key is that word, partners. So what we're always looking for are great partnerships. And how do you make that great partnership? We need constant communication. We need responsiveness. We need our partners to constantly be updating their databases and their panelists and anticipating the type of person that we're going to want to talk to or that we want to test with us. So those are some of the key things that make it easy to work with us.
Thanks, Sherry. And in that same vein, what are some things that your partners could be doing to make it easier for you to work with them that they might not be doing now?
I think one of the key things is to really be actively listening. So listen, ask questions, show that true interest, check in. So we don't have to be checking in with you. Again, communication, responsiveness, and again, making it a true partnership. And so it's easy to go back and forth, and there's a successful outcome for everyone.
Thanks. Yeah, we've heard partnership come up in some of our past webinars as well, even on different topics. So I think partnership is key. It's an important one. So moving on, since it's important to nurture the relationship with your clients before, during, and after a project, is there a guide or a roadmap that you follow to ensure that their needs are met at all of these points? Megan, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, sure. I think every client is different, and so one of the most important things is to really pay attention to the needs of to what those needs are, and then, as Sherry said, to be responding to those needs in a timely manner, to be responding to them with a certain level of expertise, and to really make your client feel like you are their #1 priority, and every client really should be your #1 priority, and making them feel that way is part of maintaining those client relationships. But I mean, in terms of ensuring that their needs are met, you really it is a journey, and we are partners, and so we should be holding hands along the way, making sure to be prepared, making sure to ask the right questions, to respond in the in the right way, and to have answers to their questions, so and to be able to problem solve around things that happen, before the work, during the work, and after the work. Things don't always, you can plan, to the smallest detail, but sometimes things don't always work out perfectly, so you really have to be prepared to problem solve, and to make sure that your client is a part of that process as well. Not that they should be the ones that are that the burden is put on to solve the problem, but that you're really communicating along the way and really responding along the way. One of the things that we do is we work with our clients, especially during the executional process and afterwards, to partner with them in the development of the insights coming out of the work. So we often, following our projects, do what we call a work session, where the research team comes together, and it's a facilitated work session where we move through the findings, and then get to either some of the tactical kinds of decisions that need to be made, or some of the strategic decisions that we've been asked to address, and then the team comes in. So the marketers, the packaging people, the brand managers, and we all sit together, and we present the insights that we have developed during our work session, and then have a very open, collaborative kind of discussion about where do we take these, how do we get there, what needs to be done, what are next steps, so that really when the research project is finished, everybody's walking away with the same information. Sometimes we find people that come in and out of research, and they're there for a group, or they're there for a day, and they take some of their own insights away, which are valuable, but it's important to always have the full story. So it's also a way to safeguard from something kind of going rogue in the client system.
Thanks, Megan. That's really good information. And Meryl, how would you follow that?
Well, I'm not sure you do. I think Megan did an amazing job.
You follow that, right?
Thank you.
This was a Family Feud. I think she listed the top 95, and I got to pick up the count.
I'm sorry.
No, really good job. I'm going to go, I think what I'm going to try to do is go in a little bit different direction for a second. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then I'll lead into my answer. So I chair a CEO Summit with in every January for the last 11 years. And at the CEO Summit in January of 18, we focused on, and it's all CEOs from the market research industry. It's about 80 of them who come together in Florida, and we talk about issues and problems. And one of the issues we were currently talking about was how hard it is to hire salespeople and maintain them. And everybody has a Rolodex, but nobody can sell anything. We've all made mistakes hiring, blah, blah, blah. So after that session, a friend of mine put me in touch with somebody else, and it led me to a company that sells what's called the AccuMax Index, which is basically a management tool that's based on like a 3-minute survey, and it tells you and explains how people are wired. And it's been unbelievable. We've used this for the past year, and it tells us how our team likes to be onboarded, how they like to be integrated within the company, what their personality is, how they like to work, how they like to communicate. And we all know, if you close your eyes and think about your 5 best friends, right? Each of them probably communicate a little bit different. Maybe Freddie likes to communicate through texting, and Callie likes to communicate on the phone, and somebody else's email, and somebody else's in person. Well, clients are like that as well. So what we've been doing with this AccuMax tool is we've been asking a number of our clients up front to take the survey. And what we do is we match them up with team members in-house, and we can spit out another report that tells us the way that each of them are and how they should communicate effectively. So if somebody likes to communicate, whether it's via email or whether it's they like more updates or they make less updates, or they want to keep some of the information pie in the sky and at a high level. So we've done a really good job with that. And I would recommend anybody who's listening is just take a look at that. I'm not saying go with this one, although this is one of the only one that tells you how people are wired. And it's been amazing with conflict with any internal teams, or how to manage somebody when they come to the business, and how to work around and really get the most out of a client relationship. Now, we all talk about partnerships, but not every client relationship really, if we think about it, is a partnership. So I'm going to come at it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just think coming at it a little bit different may help some of the folks listening.
So let me ask you a question about that. So essentially, it's a personality profile of sorts. Did you say that you asked your clients to do it, and are they pretty receptive to that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We do ask our clients to do it, but the reality is not every single one of them. And if we got to be honest with each other here, what percentage of our clients are really partners, right? I would put a stake in the ground and say, okay, is it 20%, right? And we ask those clients ease into it, because some of our account managers and our project staff aren't really comfortable asking them, but we do ask them to fill out this survey, and it really takes 3 minutes. And it gives a 22-page report about, if from interviewing questions, if you were to just interviewing somebody, to integrating, to onboarding, to communicating, just everything about their style, and it's very effective. We haven't had a client say no yet. They've all taken it. The ones that we've asked. We have not asked all of our clients. But yeah, we ask them, and it's been effective. It really has. We've actually switched some team members, or brought some other team members on because of the results of the survey.
That's really interesting. So you use it to kind of see who's the best fit for your client as far as working with them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the beauty. I mean, think about it, right? If you're working with Sherry Banky over at KC, if she has a new partner or a new vendor that she's working with, she's probably only going to give you one shot. So from a supplier standpoint, you want to make sure it's your best foot forward. And I want to make sure on Sherry's project that I have, is it Susan who does amazing stuff? Is it Shelly? Is it Sam? Is it Tony? And I think this survey gives us a little bit more insight on who that should be.
Interesting.
Thanks, Meryl. That's really, really interesting. So, Sherry, to follow that, and again, I know this is going to be really hard to do. Can you give us an example of a process that a partner that you work with uses that you were particularly impressed with? Is there something that one of your partners does that kind of stood out to you?
So what I'd say is that it was very refreshing to hear what both Megan and Meryl, what they just talked about, because, like they said, when they say each client is unique, on our side we say the same thing. So each manager of the project reaching out is unique as well. So, right, different vendors have different processes, but to find that fit, to know the right communication style, how often you should be communicating, what method, right? Email, phone, text, the timing of that communication. I think that's really the key. So I think, again, both what Megan and Meryl, both their examples, and this AccuMax tool sounds very, very interesting, because again, I think we've all been in situations where maybe there wasn't that right fit between between both sides, and things went well, but they could have perhaps went better, right? When you find out about each other and you can make those unique connections, so that, right, the project updates are done just how the client is expecting them, the once a week, the once every other week, whatever they are, or that the client doesn't have to reach out to the vendor looking for those updates. The updates just automatically flow in, and when there's an issue, it's brought to the top, and right, we all talk about it and figure out how we're going to move on.
Yeah. Renee, can I just jump in for a sec?
Oh, please, yes.
Yeah. So the other thing that I was thinking about, as because it sounds so interesting, this index personality profile, but for a company like ours, which is just a very small, I mean, we don't have a huge number of researchers, really 4 main researchers, and then someone who is really part-time. So and usually, although there are projects that where a team of us will work together with a client, oftentimes there's just one of us going out to to do the work and to meet the client team and to work with them. And it's always interesting because from the client side, you can always you always can see sort of a range of different personalities. There's the person who is who is very analytical, and there's somebody who is new, and there's somebody who probably doesn't want to be there. It's interesting to manage those, not just their needs, but also their personalities, and also to help your main contact on the client side, to help either him or her sort of manage their team is also a skill set that as a researcher and being in front of the mirror, you sometimes even have to be managing what's happening in back of the mirror at times, because of the the personalities that come to the research, and some of the different dynamics that happen within the client team, and within your interaction with the client team.
Thanks, Megan. So I always like to include some do's and don'ts for consultants or researchers who may be fairly new in their role, or for anyone really, especially when speaking with a panel with years and years of combined experience on this topic. So with that, what is the one thing you should always do when working with your clients, and one thing you should never do? Meryl, let's start with you on that one.
Well, let me start with a quick story from 1988. I had a client named Freddie Betos from New England Business Service, so it's NEBS, when I was working in Massachusetts. And I always remember what she told me. She goes, Meryl, my evaluation of partners doesn't start when everything's going great. Because when everything's going great, everybody's answering my phone. I can't say everybody's answering my text or computer, because back then we didn't have those systems, but everybody's answering their phone. Everybody is wanting to take me out for lunch. Everybody's telling me how great I am. And she goes, my evaluation starts when something goes awry. The sample's not performing the way it should. We're missing an end date. Somebody has to come back with me for more money. And I think that the do's and don'ts for me and our team, what we try to do on everything is take responsibility, right? So if we're working with somebody on Sherry Banky's team from Kimberly-Clark, and something goes awry, or we can see something that might be going squirrely, let's get our team in front of this quickly, and don't let it happen, and communicate it effectively. Take the responsibility and make sure that we're a stand-up company that does that. So I think that's really what everybody needs to do, is take responsibility, take ownership, and making sure that you're delivering that. The thing that none of us should do, and I'd be curious and ask, I know I'm not the moderator here, but I'd ask Sherry a question if this bothers her, like I think it does, is don't nickel and dime a client, right? You know, oh, I didn't do this, and I gotta charge you another $300 for this, or I gotta charge you $1,000 for this, or $10,000 for that. So one of the things I would suggest that if anybody's listening is don't nickel and dime clients. I think it has a negative effect, and I think it can really hurt your business down the road.
Thanks, Meryl. So what do you have on this one, Megan?
Yeah, well, not to be redundant, but as I sort of talked a little bit earlier about, you know, making your client feel like, you know, they are always your priority, and never letting them think that they're not at the top of your list, and that, you know, their needs don't, you know, matter at this, you know, exact moment in time, I think is really a key, you know, is really key to you know, something that you should do, and you know, something that you should never, you know, never do, never not let them think that you're their priority. But beyond that, you know, I think that you should, you know, you should always be available, and you should make sure that you're, you know, you should make sure you're keeping up with their industry. You should make sure that you're in touch with them, and find ways to communicate with them regularly, you know, and never let them see you sweat either, you know, because there are lots of things that happen behind the scenes, and you know, I think that, you know, our job as the researchers is to make the process as seamless as possible, which is why, you know, when we think about who we want to partner with, you know, working with an organization like L&E is just a tremendous benefit to us, because they, you know, we know we're always their top priority, and they make everything seem so easy, you know, and so seamless at their end, and that in turn helps us, you know, be able to do the same thing with our clients. So, you know, it's important. Our relationships with our clients are really important, but our relationships with the people that we work with in the field, and who, you know, bring the project really together in terms of finding the right respondents and getting them in the room, and, you know, having them there on time, and having all the right things that we need. Those things, you know, it's important to us that we find organizations like L&E to work with, because they make our jobs easy.
Thank you, Megan. And Sherry, being on the client side, what do you have to say about that?
Well, one of the things that I like to, I would say for the always do, is always be honest. So if the client comes to you with a given project, and it may seem a little daunting, when it's quickly accepted and there aren't too many questions, sometimes that makes us uneasy. So then when you come back to us a couple weeks later and you're telling us how hard the recruit is, you're not sure you're going to make it, all these other things, it's extremely disappointing. So I think it's very key for the vendor, the supplier, to be honest. And if you can't take the project on, then don't take it on. It's not that we wouldn't come back to you. I would prefer to be told that you can't take the project on at this point for, you know, whatever reason, and you can give us those reasons, and perhaps we can talk through why you can't, and maybe we can adjust things on our side. And then from a never standpoint, I like Meryl's, you know, don't nickel and dime. Again, it goes along with being honest. Give me all the costs, give me all the possible costs up front, and then if we come in a little under, awesome for everybody, right? Again, like to be treated, at least for that specific project that we bring to you, you know, don't treat us like, we don't want to be treated like it's a service. We won't treat you like it's a service. You don't treat us like it's a service. Again, I heard Meryl say, it's not always easy to be partners with everyone, but for that specific project that we bring to you, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, that partnership at that specific point in time, again, to make sure that the project is a success for everyone involved on both sides of the table. And then I guess I would say never take advantage. So I don't want to take advantage of the supplier, and I would hope that on the flip side that I'm not ever being taken advantage of on the client side.
Thank you, Sherry. So coming on the heels of our last webinar, where we talked about emerging technologies in Qual, are there any technologies that say were not available 10 years ago that you use now that have been a game changer for you when it comes to maintaining your client relationships, like social media or things like that? Anyone, feel free to answer that one.
Yeah, and this is Meryl. I can jump on and start the ball rolling. I think from 10 years ago, we're doing a lot of qualitative research in non-traditional places. So what I mean by that is we've rented out suites at the ballpark for a baseball game, minor league baseball game, to have certain respondents test products in their natural environment that they normally would use these products, right? We've also done that with museums and a number of other places that normally you wouldn't think that you would do research. The other thing that's erupted from an ethnography standpoint, and again in the qual space, is we do a lot of vanographies, which will have a focus group in a van with 5, 6 respondents, and then we'll start it there, and then we'll go into a store and do some shopping, and then we'll all convene back after a half an hour or whatever, and continue the process and continue the focus group in the van, and then we'll do it again. It's just a little bit, clients really like it. And it's different than what we ever did 10 years ago.
Thanks, Meryl. Megan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, emerging technologies, in qualitative have been, have been innovative and have helped us, gain access to consumers that, where it would have been, more difficult to do that. It allows us to save time often, and it gives us a number of interesting tools to work with, especially when you're working, with consumers, in online panels or in, online communities and things like that. And those things are always, important and important to keep up with, and, important to integrate into your work. I think, some of the things that Meryl was talking about are, just interesting ways of doing research, putting consumers in their natural environments, and getting into their homes and getting into their lives to really understand how and why they do the things they do, and how and why they think the way they think.
Thanks, Megan. So Megan, I want to stay with you for a moment because I want to ask you a question, only because I know that you have some international accounts. So other than having the difficulty of the time difference and having to work around that, is there anything special as far as culture or custom that you have to take into consideration when working with an international client?
Well, there are always the logistical things, but also, paying attention to culture, paying attention to, what are the things that are important to them, and how are they different, and how can you help them understand U.S. culture? So that is, in many ways, a lot of our European clients, they don't always understand culture and the American culture, or how American kids, or these kinds of things. So one of the things that we try to do is to make sure to keep them up to date with what's happening. We recently have started doing what we call some knowledge sharing sessions with our clients, especially those that are in Europe, to help them a little bit, to understand what millennial parents in the U.S. are like, or what are some of the new cultural trends that we see among parents or among kids or among seniors in the U.S. And so I think that adds some value for them. It helps us stand out as researchers and as partners, and it also gives them a better understanding of what's going on in U.S. culture. And then just beyond that, I think you just have to be super sensitive to the differences that they that they naturally bring to any kind of a research project. And you have to be able to accept those, you have to be able to work with those, and you have to be able to integrate those into your relationship with them, because it's not always you're not always on the same page. And so it's important as the research company to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make them feel comfortable and to feel well integrated, especially when they're traveling 8 to 10 hours on a plane over to the States to do some research. We want them to we want to make them feel special and taken care of.
Thanks, Megan. Meryl or Sherry, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Sure. I've done quite a bit of global work, both on the client side and on the consultant side over the past decade. So I would say that the number one thing to focus on is building trust. And so what I find is that you can't go over and start working with them immediately. There's that period of time that you have to build in, and you have to build that trust with them for that first day or so, and they have to become comfortable with you before they will actually start trusting in you, truly hearing your recommendations on what you might be saying for a certain project. And then for me, building trust and then going along with, as you mentioned, right, there's always the time zone difference. So I tend to make the extra effort and always make it inconvenient for myself, and will make the calls and communications happen when it's most convenient for them, to just show that, again, I'm understanding them, I'm understanding where they are today, and not allowing that time difference to stand in our way and put us 24 hours behind every time there's a new piece of communication.
Yeah. Just building on what Sherry said, I'm reminded of what one of my partners, David, said a couple of weeks ago. He said sometimes working with clients from from other countries, it's like working. It's like they're like coconuts. They've got this hard shell on the outside, and you've got to break through sometimes, to get to that sweet fruit on the inside. But once you've built that trust, as Sherry was saying, it becomes a great partnership and a great collaboration. But that building of trust is so important. I couldn't agree with you more, Sherry.
I would agree with that 100%. So Sherry, staying with you on this one, within Kimberly-Clark, there are many different teams that a potential consultant could work with. What are some of the things that a consultant could do to stand out when trying to win work or to not only trying to win work, but to kind of, get themselves around the company and be introduced to other teams when they want to do work with them.
Yeah, so sometimes it's, right, as I'm sure both Megan and Meryl know, it's very difficult to get in, right, to someplace new because, right, most managers have their go-to place, their comfort zone, and so that's where, they'll most easily go to. I would say know our products, know the products that we work on, know the competition for the products that we work on, including the landscape. So if we're talking about a product that is in the market, a disposable product, not only knowing the products that the consumer can buy off the shelf, knowing the other options that are available online, and perhaps other options that may not be disposable that the new sustainability effort people may be going after. Again, I'm sure Megan and Meryl do this all the time, but those are just some things to help, if you really want in, know a little bit about us before you actually come knocking.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Megan and Meryl, Sherry said breaking in or getting in. What are some things you can do?
Yeah, let me jump on that. Look, Sherry's right. I mean, it's not like she sits there in her office and says, okay, I want to add 3 new research partners. Who are they going to be? I mean, I think it's got to be the right timing. It's got to be the right project. It's got to be the right goal set. Most clients probably won't get started on a real tricky, challenging, high-profile project. They're probably a little bit more safer in terms of an easy project or something that may not have the C-level attention. But I think one of the things we've done that a number of our clients say they really like is we'll go a little bit over the top in terms of when we deliver a proposal, we'll use video, do a 45-second video on why we should be chosen for this particular proposal, whether it's based on some of our experience in the vertical, whether it's our experience on a certain methodology, whether it's our heritage with forecasting or our do-it-yourself concept testing tool, whatever it is. So we'll point out in 45 seconds or so some things that are really important. And it does a few things. And we'll also make it, from a personal standpoint, some of the staff that we have, they're very passionate about certain products, right? Whether it's a certain beverage, whether it's a certain restaurant, whether it's a hospital, whatever. And so we personalize it a little bit. And then the other thing is, look, think about it this way. I'm sure Sherry and her team do this all the time. People buy from people they like. And when we develop a quick 45-second video that we attach either to a proposal or even a final presentation or something like that, a little bit value add, it humanizes it a little bit more and they see who they're working with. And I think it's helped out. A number of our clients have said they really, really enjoyed it. And it's made a difference.
Thanks, Meryl. Megan, you have anything to follow that with?
Yeah, I mean, we one of the things that we try to do is when we're in that those beginning stages of getting to know a client, trying to get trying to get the first project, and we try to find ways of staying in touch. We try to find relevant and interesting kinds of things to share with them. Making sure that we're keeping up, not only making sure that we know what's going on in their industry, but making sure that we're keeping up in their industry. So, just recently, there's a sort of a new debate going on right now in the U.S. Among parents and educators and about screen time with kids. So we sort of had the debate about 10 years ago, and then everybody kind of got used to, iPads and kids using iPhones and, la la la. Now there's a whole new body of research that's come out talking about, how much time is too much time, and how screen time is affecting eye development and brain development and some of these kinds of things. And it's a super interesting, it's a super interesting debate to be following, not only from an academic perspective, but also from a psychological and behavioral perspective. And so, for many of my clients who are dealing with those kinds of things, making sure that we're sharing those things with them. So I often will, find an interesting article and and send it to my clients, or to send it to new clients as a way of dropping in, staying in touch, not being a pest, because you don't always want to be calling them up and you don't want to be perceived as pesky, but at the same time, I think from time to time to drop in, to stay in touch and say, hey, I thought you might be interested in this. It keeps you in the front of their minds, and then they, at some point or another, something might happen, and they may say, well, this is I think maybe let's give this organization a try and see. Yeah.
Thank you, Megan. So I think that just about wraps it up for us today, as far as what I'm going to grill you on and your experience. Is there anything that I did not touch on that any of you think that is extremely important for our listeners to take away from this today?
Yeah, let me toss something out. I mean, I think, I'll ask everybody just a quick question. What percentage of relationships would you call partnerships, right? Sherry, so if you have, I don't know how many vendors or partners you have, but if you use 20 suppliers, how many would you consider are true partners? If you had a percentage or a number out of that?
That's a tough question. I would say at least maybe half.
Okay. All right. You're probably a little higher. I would think, I mean, that's great for you guys, but I would think most relationships are probably vendor-client, aren't partnerships. I think it's probably 80-20 if I had to guess. And I think for me, what we try to achieve is, if you really want to have a partnership with, whether it's a client or even somebody that we subcontract to, I think the effort has to be there on both ends. You've got to really have all your goals aligned, and you got to be about the relationship, not about the project. Meaning, if you've had a relationship for 3 or 4 years and you've done all these projects and something goes antsy, I think that there's tremendous time that's invested in that relationship, and I think deal with it as the entire relationship, as just going and having an issue with just that one project. And I think for me, and what we try to teach the team here, is great partnerships go deep and wide, right? And where vendors are really vulnerable, if they only have one person on Sherry's team that they're working with, and that person, for whatever reason, leaves, whether it's retirement after a number of years, or whether it's they go on to something else, or they want to leave the business, whatever. But if they're not deep and wide, chances are that relationship will go away. So you've got to go deep and wide 100% to make real partnerships work. So I just wanted to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Meryl. Appreciate that. So thanks so much, guys, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. We're going to take some questions for the next few minutes, but first we'd like to thank Focus Forward, our transcription partner, who so graciously volunteered to transcribe this webinar for free. Focus Forward is just one of the technology partners that we've partnered with to bring a complete qualitative toolkit to our clients. We'll be emailing out the recording of this webinar, and you can view this webinar or download a copy of the free transcript at our website, as well as learn about all of our exciting technologies offered through L&E Solutions at www.L&E or leresearch.com. So let's get started with some questions. Let's see. Meryl, this one is directed at you.
Right.
Do you find that clients like and seek out these unique techniques, or do they fight back? I'm assuming that that is in reference to the personality profile that you like to use.
Yeah, I think you've got to use it. We haven't had anybody fight back yet, but we're really cautious on who we ask to do it and explain it. And a lot of the explaining probably falls on one of our senior team members, including myself, as to why we're doing it. We're doing it to enhance the relationship on both ends and make sure that we are understand how they communicate, how they like to be integrated, and it really has been effective. But yes, if I opened it up to every one of our clients, would we get tons of pushback? Not a question, we would, because a lot of people are not comfortable with this. But if there are people who understand and will listen to what we say, that it's really just based on the relationship, they've had no issue with it. They really enjoyed it. And we've also, it's interesting, I won't give you names, but I've also used the tool with a number of my friends who are having some issues with their marriage, and it's really helped out with their situation, and it saved at least 2 marriages, which is funny.
Wow, this is like a wonder tool.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so next question. This is a good one. Please address tips to maintain client relationships when a key or primary contact on the client side leaves or is replaced. Who can address that one?
I've had that happen so many times in my career.
That's a doozy, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't go wide and deep, you're vulnerable, and then you're in a problem. Your back's up against the wall. And if it's a large client relationship, it can be problematic. I'll give you one thing that comes to mind that we've done that has helped in a number of situations. What we did is we put together a report, a binder, a lot of information on all the projects that we did with this particular client that the contact left in the past 18 months. And we got on their calendar to at least review it with them so they were understood some of the types of projects we did and some of the methodologies and some of the insights. It did make a difference, but in some situations it doesn't, because if somebody's coming in at a high level, they're typically coming in with a lot of their prior relationships, and that they might want to use them pretty quickly. So you need an internal champion as well to help you navigate through the process. And if you don't go wide and deep, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I'll just build on that a little bit, Renee, by saying that, when a client, when your main contact does leave, it really is, it's a tough thing. But I think that you have to be able to, you should always know that that's a possibility, and that could happen. And that's why, as Meryl says, you have to have relationships with more than that, just that one person, and you have to make sure that you spread yourself around so that you've built trust, you've built rapport with other people besides that single person, so that you do have people to fall back on. And actually, one of the things that I've found with in our situation, when a key client does leave, is that often the people who are either left or somebody that comes in sometimes relies on us even more, because we have the experience, we have the intellectual bandwidth to continue the process and to continue the sort of the research journey. So but you have to be able to or you have to know that that's probably going to happen, and you need to always be thinking about, what are the steps that I'm going to, what are we going to do, and how do we want to be when that does occur?
Yeah, let me
Yeah,
just
go ahead, Meryl.
build on that for a second. I think that's really, really important. I would toss back, when did you find out they left, right? Did you find out they left 3 weeks before they're leaving, or did you find out they left a week after they left? If you found out prior, you can use that to your advantage a little bit, assuming you have a great relationship, to help you navigate the new waters, right? And call in favors, especially if it's a relationship that's been around for a long time. But it's definitely going to happen. I mean, I have 26,000 connections on LinkedIn, and 22% of them changed jobs last year. Think about that number.
Wow.
That just makes me dizzy even thinking about having that many clients. My blood pressure is just going up thinking about it now.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but I didn't mean that. But the reality is everybody's changing jobs, and you got to be really aware and close to your clients, and also reorgs are happening left and right. I don't think we probably hear about a reorg every week or two from one of our clients.
Wow. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so on to the next question. There's someone who wants to know a little bit more about how vendors can leverage their connection with other departments, teams, and managers in the same organization. How can they network their way through? Who can address that one?
Well, I think that it's an interesting question, but you also have to be pretty careful, I think, as the research vendor. You have to know who is your client. Who's your client? Who do you ultimately, who do you report into, so to speak? Who, maybe I'm not understanding the question as it was laid out, but I think you have to be pretty careful, actually, of where you go in that organization, making sure that you're maintaining a connection with your client and not going in other doors and creating relationships that may not be appropriate, so to speak, in other areas. I think you always have to keep your eye on who's your client and who do you ultimately have the relationship with.
Got it, Megan.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I very often get requests, to speak with different people at Kimberly-Clark. How can we get in? How can we become one of your partners? And so I will often look at what they're presenting to me, look them up on the web, and then there are several different testing groups, like within Kimberly-Clark, for example. And so if it doesn't fit within the type of testing the group that I'm in manages, and I think that it might be worthwhile, I can forward the information on to another group. Again, it's up to them whether they want to follow up with it or not, or as Meryl had stated earlier, if we're full up with the vendors, the suppliers that we think we need right now, and there's nothing new or exciting that we think we need a different vendor for at this time, I may just, let it pass.
Thank you, Sherry. So we're getting low on time here, so we probably only have time for one more. I'd like to mention anyone who submitted a question, if we've not answered it live here for you now, we will have your question answered and we'll respond after the webinar is over. So this next one, and this is a good one. How would you actually define what partnership means? So I would say that in our industry, Megan, let's start with you on this one. How would you define what a partnership means?
Yeah, well, I think it's Really, that's a summation of everything that we've talked about for the last hour. A partnership is one where you have where you're collaborating, where you're, we have open communication, where you really feel as if you're in this thing together. It's a journey where both of you are, fully vested in making a great outcome. So, a partnership is really all of those things. It involves things like trust and collaboration and communication and working together and honesty. All those things are just super important ingredients in building a partnership, especially one that is a lasting partnership.
Thanks, Megan. And Meryl, what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I remember when I first walked into Mark about 14 years ago, I had asked somebody who owned one of our account teams, I said, hey, why is, they said something like blank is a partner of ours. And I'm like, okay, well, why are they a partner of ours? Well, we've been doing work for 27 years and we do all their forecasting work. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Hey, do we ever get a chance to bid on anything from a qualitative? No. What about segmentation? Do they use our segmentation tool? No. Hey, let me ask you, do we ever get invited to vendor day? No. Well, do we have C-level? No. Well, do they ever use us from a marketing standpoint and have interaction with our brands? No. Hey, how many contacts do we have at this company? One. That's not a partnership. That's a client. That's a relationship, and that's a great relationship. So legacy, from my standpoint, legacy in years that you've been working together is never a reason to call a relationship a partner. And I think that's important. And I think it's all the things that Megan had said. I think you've got to go, again, deeper. You've got to go wider. Are you invited into the inner circle? Are you invited to partner day? Do you have different relationships with the brands? I mean, we're selling to different people right now. It's not just market research analyst or manager. It's director of marketing. It's brand manager. It's in some of our clients, it's even C-level, where we were never getting that before, and especially the CMO. So I think it's, are you consulted on different methodologies? Are you consulted on different types of projects? And if you're not, then you're probably pigeonholed and it is not a partnership.
Thank you, Meryl. We've run a couple minutes over on time, but I'd like to mention one more time that we'll be emailing out a recording of this webinar, and you can view this webinar as well as learn about all of our other technologies offered through L&E Solutions at www.leresearch.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, and be on the lookout in your email for an invite to the next webinar that we'll be hosting in the new year. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, panelists. Appreciate
Bye,
it.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.